Donald Trump is being investigated under the Espionage Act. Does that mean he's a spy? If he is, he must be the worst spy anyone has ever seen. When he's with his handlers, he'll talk about nothing but the impressive size of his crowds, and how he always has the best words. Now, does this actually mean, the fact that he's being investigated under the Espionage Act, does that actually mean that he's being investigated for spying, for espionage? You've probably already heard the answer to that is actually no, even though you'll see a lot of reporting that it does, that it means he was, or probably was, or even could have been a spy. Now, we can't say for certain that he wasn't a spy, but we can say that, at least at this point, we don't have any evidence that he ever was. Now, I know this is disappointing to a lot of people. I find it really odd, actually. If you go back in time to the peeing prostitute video story that supposedly, Vladimir Putin had this evidence on him that he was with peeing prostitutes, and it compromised him, and he became a Russian agent. I will admit I was a little bit gullible, I guess, at the time. It sounded like an outlandish story, but outlandish stuff actually does happen sometimes. So I kind of thought this was probably actually true. At least some of it. And I thought over the next few years we would probably be learning a lot of really weird stuff about Donald Trump. We actually learned a lot more about a lot of other people and the things they were willing to do under those circumstances. And when the news finally came out that, in reality, there was no evidence that Donald Trump had any kind of collusion, and that the whole peeing thing was probably completely made up. In fact, the whole story was probably completely made up. I was relieved. And I can say that as someone who has never been a Donald Trump fan. When I was a little kid, I was actually creeped out by the dude. The first time I saw him on television, I thought he was a creepy guy. I actually still do. I think he's a creepy individual. But he was also President of the United States. And learning that the President of the United States was not an asset for Vladimir Putin was kind of a good thing. I was glad to learn that. And I was amazed by how many people weren't. People had really invested themselves into this idea, and they, cried. People found out that the President of the United States was not a Russian asset, and they cried about it. And a lot of those people are probably still holding on to that hope that maybe a former president of the United States was actually, maybe even was actually a spy for Russia at the time. But there is no evidence that that was the case. And, you've probably already heard this. Even though the media has been chiming in that Donald Trump is suspected of being a spy. The Espionage Act, the purpose of the Espionage Act is, it's to prevent espionage. It's to increase the security of America's necessary secrets. And some of the ways you do that, obviously are by prosecuting actual spies, but you also just want to control those secrets themselves and control the documents on which those secrets are recorded. Control who has access to them and where they go and how the information is transmitted from one person to another, from one place to another. And a person who actually has a right to have access to those documents can still violate the Espionage Act in various ways without being a spy. And the evidence At this point, we don't even have any evidence that Donald Trump actually violated the Espionage Act. The mere fact that someone is being investigated under it. You know, we still have, in the United States, we still have this weird thing called innocent until proven guilty. So at this point, apparently he has been investigated. They have looked for paperwork under the Espionage Act, but we cannot say now that he has actually violated anything. And if it turns out, in the end, that it is yet another investigation where they say, well, we looked into it, and it turns out there's just kind of nothing. Then I'm sure a lot of people will go cry again. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time.